Welcome to the Feel Alive at Work online retreat. I'm Karen Hoffman of A Work Life You Love. I'm the host of the retreat and a coach specializing in helping people create work lives that are both fulfilling and personally sustainable. In this session, I'm speaking with Amanda Elo'Esh. I'm thrilled that Amanda is here because she's a rather amazing person. She's a living, breathing example of someone who has cut through the noise and connected with her passion, her gifts, her values, and in fact, her life purpose, and created a work life that's truly aligned with who she is. She has an especially keen sense of what is true versus what programmed messages we carry around and live. And she has deep knowledge of how to free ourselves from the programmed messages and realize our truth.
Mm.
She's grounded, wise, and generous. So that's a little bit about what Amanda is like. And I'd also like to, I think she's a great fit for the retreat. And I also want to tell you a bit about her background and her current work. She's the founder and president of Living Wisdom, which is a dogma-free, sacred, entheogenic nonprofit. She began her career with studies in psychology. She has a master's degree in counseling psychology and expressive arts therapy, and a certification in integrative medicine, guided imagery, and expressive arts from California Institute of Integral Studies. And she worked at California Pacific Medical Center in the Institute for Health and Healing, as well as Marin General Hospital. And Amanda is also an ordained priestess, initiated into sacred feminine, as well as multiple indigenous wisdom medicine traditions. She's been teaching and offering guidance for over 40 years. Amanda's the author of several books, including Unlock Your Success Codes and Elevationship, Replace Conflict with Greater Intimacy. And she's the creator of the Go Ask Alice Oracle and Tea Party game. Amanda helps spiritual seekers discover and strengthen their spiritual path. As a spiritual success mentor, she helps you clear subconscious blocks and activate your spiritual gifts with repatterning, sacred feminine archetypes, and plant medicine ceremonies. Amanda guides transformational retreats for overwhelmed leaders, couples on the edge of breakup. She also trains entrepreneurs to awaken their super senses, step into their leadership, live their noble purpose, and prosper. Last but not least, Amanda has taught internationally, including at Oroville, India, Ozora Psychedelic Festival in Hungary, Google, and the California Institute for Integral Studies. I want to give you a very warm welcome, Amanda. Thank you
Mhm.
for
It
joining.
is a very warm welcome. Thank you, Karen. Such an honor to be here. I'm really excited to drop in with you.
I'd like to ease into the topic you're going to be speaking about, which is knowing your purpose and aligning with your purpose. And I want to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Specifically, what is your relationship to this topic of connecting with your purpose and then aligning with it in the way that you make
Mm.
choices about your work and how you
Mhm.
live your life?
Mhm. Well, I've been a channel since I was a child, and for me, that means really getting powerful visions and messages and experiences that were beyond the normal third dimensional reality. And some of them were visions of myself as a grown up. And I didn't know medicine ceremonies at all, as a child, and I didn't know about transformational circles, but I was in the center of people using my voice to help them to connect with Creator in an individual way. And again, it didn't make practical sense, but I've been really passionate about understanding how to share my gifts with other people who have different gifts, different abilities, different challenges, different values, a different life path. And so I've just been really passionately pursuing understanding human consciousness, the subconscious, creativity, and how to bridge what I was experiencing with human knowledge to share with other people that could help them in unique ways. And um, when I'm in that zone of really sharing my gifts, there's nothing better And I also had times of struggling with the business end, thinking that if I had the purpose part dialed in, the business part was just going to fall in, suit, and people would just be lining up and they'd know exactly what I was about. That was not the case. That was part of my human journey, was to learn about prosperity and how to be an entrepreneur as well as being a spiritual guide. And so, and that's also a spiritual path, because it helps us to meet our ego wounds, like self-worth and courage and speaking our truth and authenticity and making choices that really align with our purpose versus the tempting things, to make money. So I had to walk that path myself and learned quite a bit along the way. So it's very resonant for me. I feel like the more people can know what they're really here to do in this lifetime, and have the courage and the tools to step into that, then the world becomes a better place.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to dive further into the topic, and I imagine that, and excuse me, everybody, I have to keep clearing my throat. I imagine that many people in the audience are interested in learning how they can discover their purpose. They might be wondering, how do I get clarity about what my purpose is? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I've been really passionate about, how do we discover that? Is it just random? And I I did a bunch of work for 11 years. I did child welfare, and I started to notice, and this was, still felt a little bit aligned with my purpose, but it was, I was finding my way. But I noticed that there were a lot of kids that had these incredible gifts that were outside the box, you know, and they were getting in trouble at home or at school or both and getting punished because the adults just didn't know how to see, honor, and cultivate their gifts because they were unusual. And we have systems of oppression, including, unfortunately, schools, despite amazing teachers and people who want to be of service to children. It's really, there's so much to get kids to conform versus really having the resources to see, acknowledge, and cultivate those unique gifts, And so one of the main uh, clues is to remember what was it that you loved as a child, even if it was playing with cars. Of course, you're not going to like, I'm going to make a career out of playing with cars, but to really tune in, what was the essence, like what was it sparking inside, and then also paying attention to the things you got in trouble for, because a lot of times those are very special gifts that
Mhm.
simply get cut down or ignored or punished because they are just more than busy caretakers and overwhelmed teachers have the ability to acknowledge and really work with. And so those are two really important things to look at, and I'd say even journal about, see if there are patterns, see if there's something underneath that, like what, at the essence, at the heart of loving to be running around outside, or loving to sing or make crazy sounds, what's at the heart of that, that you can cultivate, and what are the secret things, like, oh, if I had time, I would love to do this. uh, those are really important to give yourself permission to pursue.
I think you're so right about talking about, despite adults' best intentions, we have institutions like schools that constrain us. And I think these are three great strategies, three great prompts for exploring, what do I love? What is my purpose? Yeah, what did you love as a kid? What did you get in trouble for? And if I had the time, I would fill in the blank. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So, so, say somebody follows those prompts and they spend some time and they identify what they believe is their purpose, um, then what do? You know, they may
Yeah.
already have a job or a business that pays the bills and brings them a certain amount of security in some important ways, or maybe they don't. Maybe they're struggling, but in either case, you know, so once you know what your purpose is, how do you go about aligning with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's going to be different for everybody. You know, some of us, like me, I got the prompt like, hey, your karmic work being a social worker, a child welfare worker, which I knew was a karmic commitment, is over. You can do whatever you want. And I just leapt. You know, I only knew 9 to 5. My family was only 9 to 5 workers. And I just dove into, and that's when I was like, oh, I'm just going to make all this money. Like, oh no, that's not actually true. And it was a struggle. But I'm also really good at taking the dive and trusting that, you know, those prompts. Other people thrive when they really plan it out. And so there can be a multitude of ways. I would say something that feels true maybe for everybody possibly is once you really have an idea about something that again it's going to refine over time, it's going to change and get more honed in over time the more you give yourself permission to express it, but to let that be a top priority and to focus on cultivating it and offering it, regardless of whether you're making money. Some people I know, they're great. They are very successful entrepreneurs that have made plenty of money, and now they're, you know, they did great, but their purpose work is to be of service in different ways that they now have free time to do. We don't all have that luxury, but you know, if your gift is to hold space for people and really do deep listening, you know, with a heart of compassion, you don't have to get paid for that. That can happen every day of your life, you know, looking for the opportunities to cultivate and share your gifts doesn't need to rely on making money. And I think that's one of the, if you believe in like the devil or evil or just the simple, you know, unfortunate circumstances that can befall our human relations, is that we get caught up in this idea that making money at something is the ultimate goal, or I have to make money to survive. I have to, you know, be a part of this particular system to be successful. And these are all parts of the programming that keep us disconnected from truly honoring our gifts. So if you really give yourself permission to start imagining until it becomes a deeper and deeper remembering and deep heart knowing that your life and what you're here to do is a sacred calling, and to look for the opportunities to honor that sacred calling, the universe will support you. It may mean taking the huge leap and leaving a job that was doing a great job paying the bills to step into something that's more aligned. It may mean doing your thing as a side hustle until it gets bigger. It may mean doing your thing as a side hustle for the rest of your life while you do something different that pays the bills. Like there are so many ways. One of my dearest friends is a cab driver, which seems very simple, but he's also a medicine man and he's an incredible sound healer. And the people that get in his cab, a lot of them are people of affluence now who happened upon him and like, oh, I want you to take me everywhere, because he's got such an incredible presence, and spending time with him, like the quality of who he is unquestionable. So again, we tend to like label, oh, that's just a cab driver. He's not doing his purpose work. He totally is.
Mhm, mhm.
So to give yourself permission, and he loves cab driving, you know, he really loves it because he gets to meet all these different people and get to know them and support them and bring out the magic in them. So letting go of what mom and dad or friends or society is going to label as what's successful or good for you, and really drop in again, what's your joy and how can you offer your gifts in each moment without worrying about getting acknowledgement or paid. That will bring more and more opportunities. Every person I've listened to who talks about this will say it's got to be something that you would do regardless of whether you're paid or not. And the universe will show up. The universe loves us. We are in an agreement to be here doing our purpose work. And when we're doing that, I believe everything that's greater than us, that wishes us well, shows up to support that happening.
I love that. The acknowledgement that everybody's path is somewhat different. I love the idea of just starting and looking for opportunities and cultivating the thing that feels like your purpose, honing it. Um, what do I want to say about that? Yeah, just cultivating it along the way, along with whatever else it is that you're doing already. Um, it might turn into something that you do for making a living. It might just change the way that you live. And I love the cab driver example. That's wonderful. And the idea that the universe, like, don't forget about the universe. You need to bring that into your awareness because it will help you. It will support you. Um, and at the same time, there are obstacles that come up when we're on our path. And you shared with me earlier, in an earlier conversation, that you think that a very pervasive obstacle is subconscious programming. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Whether it's just from school, or even well-meaning caretakers who, like my parents grew up during the Depression. So guess what? They have a lot of really old-fashioned scarcity survival fears and programs in their system that they passed on to me that I had to learn how to let go of. I wasn't taught about being an entrepreneur. I wasn't taught about how to, you know, think like a millionaire, right? Because my parents were like, we've got food on the table. We are blessed. That's all you get, hard work and day-to-day survival. And they were amazing, but those are hard things. And then there are really intense things that can happen to a child, like abandonment, neglect, abuse of different kinds, emotional, physical, and those cause trauma. And whatever we did to survive that experience, it kind of goes into like with that trauma, it's like a frozen program that's playing out um, in the background until it gets triggered, and then it's in the foreground, and then we're back in it and thinking that we're in those experiences again. And whether it's just quietly in the background or really at the forefront because it's triggered, it's at the helm. Our subconscious is driving. It's responsible from 90 to 98% of our thoughts, decisions, behaviors. So again, it's like if you got in trouble for singing, I used to get made fun of because I made crazy sounds. I'm a sound shaman. That's part of the healing that I do is through my voice. And my voice is now helping to awaken people. They are like, whatever you did with your voice just freed something up inside of me. I went to this, other land. I visited my aunt, and if I had kept that shut down, then I wouldn't be able to help other people with my voice. So, but I, had to reawaken it. So those programs can get in like, oh, me making crazy sounds, it's stupid, it's going to get me made fun of, it's going to get me ostracized, so it's not safe to share my voice. I always also used to get in trouble for crying if it wasn't something physical, right? So, oh, I have to, if there's something emotional going on, I have to just clamp down on it. And so these programs come in that are like, I can't do this. This isn't safe. I have to operate in this way to survive, to be accepted. to make it in the world, and it's not supporting our authentic self-expression, which the universe loves. We can't be in our purpose work if we're not authentic, if we're not really knowing and trusting and sharing who we are, which is very vulnerable. And when we have trauma, those vulnerabilities get defended and armored. And so if we don't understand and get to know really deeply the parts of ourselves that are hidden in shame and judgment and criticism from other people, but then ourselves as well, because we continue to suppress it. So then we become the primary perpetrators. If we don't learn how to bring love and healing to those places, they continue to operate and keep us, at the very best, they keep us in limiting beliefs that keep us falling short of our true purpose work and authentic self-expression, which are tied together. At worst, they keep us perpetuating traumatic and painful scenarios over and over, because it's like a chicken with its head cut off. It's this broken record, like, that's not present in real time. And I could go into all the science and how the chemistry and the mental thoughts and the consciousness and the subconscious all collude, but it just basically plays out on repeat over and over with different you know timelines and different characters, but it's like it repeats itself over and over.
Um, wow, that's a wonderful explanation. And it's it's like once you start tuning in and tuning into your purpose, tuning into what programming is there already, you can really open the door to like a whole nother life
Absolutely.
process.
It's
Um,
Yeah, it's been with people that I've been able to do that with. It's miraculous because it's something better than they could have even imagined or hoped for.
mhm.
Like, I didn't even know this was possible, and now I'm living it. And it's like, sometimes it takes a while to even like really believe and trust the reality
Right.
that they're in.
No, for a lot of people, money and time feel like obstacles. They feel like external obstacles. And I'm sort of thinking of that in terms of subconscious programming. And so I want to ask you about that. Like, what's your view? Are those external obstacles?
They're external realities. We can make them obstacles, we can make them instruments, of help. We can do both. We can shift back and forth, but money is really a construct. If you think about it, there's not a lot of cash happening. There's just a lot of numbers floating around, in our bank accounts and credit card, balances and stuff like that. Money is a construct. Time is even more of a construct. And again, how we think about those things is very, very structured based on our upbringing. And unless we had enlightened parents who, had the absolute ability to cultivate our gifts and raise us in ways that were completely liberated from limiting thoughts and beliefs around time and money, we have them in our system. And when we give ourselves permission to really know ourselves and to really free ourselves from the subconscious, we have greater access to the parts of us that are kind of superhuman, but really human, but just the unlimited human potential, which means time is a different reality. When I'm meditating and really dropping in without anxiety or stress in my system, I have plenty of time. It's very seldom that I'm like, oh, I don't have enough time for this. I don't have time for that. That's not really part of my reality. The money piece, I'm still working more and more on, but in general, over the past couple of years, several years, I really, for the most part, just have not had a worry about money, whether it's been flowing in or not. I've had this great trust that whatever I need is is available to me, and that has been the truth. That's been the reality. But it's not just an affirm. You can't just say it, you know. It's not just like a pretty affirmation that you say and then all of a sudden there's money in your bank account. It's a way of really being in flow with the universe and being aware of the parts of the self that are in the subconscious that aren't in line and that are working against us, which again is a huge percentage. So if we don't know what we're working with, if we don't know what the inner challenges are and know how to dance with them with love and kindness and wisdom, they will continue to rule. And it doesn't matter how many affirmations you say, you know, those are like the little surface layer of our reality. And then we've got the huge iceberg under the water that's actually the bulk of what's manifesting our reality.
Yeah, so no matter how many things we try and how hard we work and so on and so forth, there still is this. If you're still not succeeding, there it's could be very important to look at this subconscious piece. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So a lot of people might listen to what you're saying about do it, follow your purpose, regardless of whether or not it makes you money. And they might react by feeling concerned that pursuing their purpose would lead them to impoverishment rather than prosperity. And I'm wondering, what would you say to someone who said that to you? What advice would you offer?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, so I've had jobs, you know, when I was doing child welfare in Marin County, California, I made pretty good money. But I also spent a lot of money soothing myself and making up for the incredible stress of doing child welfare.
Mhm.
Uh, when I stopped doing work that was, yes, my gifts were being used, but was it full alignment with my purpose work? No, it wasn't. When I stepped into my purpose work, I was like, oh, my health is better. I'm not needing to spend as much money on remedies. I have more time to make really healthy food at home for myself. I have, you know, it's just like what our needs diminish, but also like when I'm in a place of joy, I attract people, you know, nobody wants one of my teachers is nobody wants medicine from an unhappy shaman, you know, and that the reality is if you're in any kind of service, you know, if you're not truly happy, who's going to want to get your help?
Right.
Who wants the medicine that you have to offer? You know, I have incredible humans in my life. Some of them are incredibly wealthy. Some of them are incredibly influential. Some of them are just phenomenal humans who nourish my life. And I know if something happened to me, I would never be homeless. I would never be left out alone. So being a joyful, kind, you know, it's like we have these constructs of I need money, you know, I'm in it all by myself. And it's like things are shifting on the planet, you know, more and more people are recognizing uh, money is not doesn't have to rule the world. It doesn't have to rule our lives. So it's a mental shift that has to happen. And again, there are many ways to do it carefully, but if you're always looking for an opportunity, if you wake up like, how can I share my gifts in a way that's really satisfying to me and of service, the universe will provide them. You know, nobody's saying you have to, you know, take on a vow of poverty to step into your purpose. Again, there are many, many ways, and I think the way will present itself for each individual if you stay focused on that question every day, you know, instead of getting lost on social media, like, oh, I'm going to learn a new song today that I can sing for my family, for my children, or, you know, I'm going to spend, you know, half of my time that I would normally spend on social media learning a new instrument or reading about something that's really important to me, you know, reading about energy work or something that's going to nourish my gifts and what is exciting to me. If we let that be, that's going to be a lot more fulfilling than what the time that we waste scrolling away on screens.
I love that. There's time wasted on things like scrolling, or binging or whatever. And then there's also just the stress, like waking up in the morning and feeling like, okay, I have 18 million things I have to do today. And you're suggesting a shift where there would be some calming, some addressing the stress or anxiety and tuning in, and starting to be able to live your life in a way that lets you know your purpose, align with your purpose, and live your life in a way that's aligned with your purpose.
Absolutely. If you think about like if somebody gets very, very sick, right? You got very sick.
Yeah.
Everything shifts priority. All of a sudden, what's really important gets very, very clear. This is what I have this energy for this today. And you just have to let go of the things you can't do. And I think it's important to give ourselves permission to not let our subconscious lead us to a great loss, whether it's our health or an accident or a loved one or something big that gets taken away from us to make us really understand what is actually important. Is there actually 18 million things you have to do today? What's really important? If you're rushing through your morning and not spending quality time with your children or with your, loved ones, um, what was really so important that you had to be distracted, spending time being in the present moment as much as you can and choosing like how do you, my mantra is how can I embody the beauty of love, because everything's an expression of love, right? Even our anger or our we're rushing, we're pushing our everything's from love, but like I want to embody the beauty of love, meaning kindness and generosity and presence. And so each moment I try like, oh, I'm going to come back into that. How can I do that? It's not going to be rushing around. It's going to be allowing certain things that aren't actually important to come, you know, off the to-do list so
Mhm.
that I can just be a human. I can just get to, do the things that are important with a sense of presence and grace and ease and love. And when I do that, the less I have to do, the less stressful and rushed I am, the more I get done, the more I attract to myself because I'm in this spacious, open, joyful frequency that attracts the things that are spacious and joyful and, like, oh, whether it's a person or an invitation, an opportunity, a resource, it's energetically attracted to what I'm cultivating for myself, and life gets easier versus the run as fast as you can to stand in place, which is a very old, broken, and honestly, it's a paradigm that's been passed down from Roman and even pre-Roman oppression, learning how to oppress the people that had been conquered from childhood. And so these systems of oppression have been passed down and adopted, and we're self-oppressing, and this like constant, now the technology world was supposed to free us up to have more spaciousness, but what it's done is created even more pressure to produce, even more stress, and we are less connected than we've ever been. The more AI, the more tech in our lives, the more stress. So there's something to consider about that. We get to choose whether we let those things pull us along and then we try to chase it, or whether we choose to have a human life,
Mhm.
you know?
I do know, and I really appreciate your thoughts on that. And eh, there is history behind it, many centuries of history, and then we learn it from our elders and our peers, and it becomes our habit. It becomes our way and our habit, and it's a habit in kind of a profound sense, but it's also just a habit a habit, like you can kick that habit. But it's a big shift. It's a big shift that you're talking about. And there are simple ways to get started.
Yeah.
So thank you, Amanda. Your insight is really valuable. And I really appreciate you sharing it with us today. I understand that you have a gift that you would like to offer our audience. Would you tell about it?
Yeah, you mentioned it at the beginning. I wrote a book called Elevationship, Replace Conflict with Greater Intimacy. And at the heart of purpose work, being happy, reaching enlightenment, which I have not myself, but it's all about really learning to understand what are the subconscious programs inside, and instead of judging them and fighting with them, to greet them with love, kindness, and compassion. That's the work I do one-on-one with people. And this book, Elevationship, is about how to let the triggers that arise, like to use them as opportunities to really understand and love these wounded parts of ourselves, and how to work with it in a relationship, whether it's at work, at home, um, and ultimately cultivating a loving relationship with yourself. And so I have a free copy. It's on Audible, it's on Amazon, but I'm offering a free e-copy to everyone in your community.
Great. That is a really generous offer. And I hope everyone goes to the link that will be in the notes below the video. And it will also be in the email that you received that listed this interview. And it's a really wonderful book. And I hope you all take advantage of that. It's free. Um, and if people want to learn more about you and your work, where should they go?
I have a nonprofit called Living Wisdom, that you mentioned earlier, Entheogenic, meaning plant medicine, sacred plant medicine, offerings, but we also offer other healing, transformational healing experiences without, entheogens. And that's livingwisdomchurch.org. It's a dogma free, as you mentioned earlier. And then my personal website for couples work, is Elo'Esh.com. And you can learn more about elevationship and the whole approach to healing. Um, I focus on romantic relationships because that just is like what most people really, are wanting support with, but it really applies to, familial relationships and deep work relationships as well.
Wonderful. So to close our conversation, I wonder if you could share with our listeners, what do you think is the one quality or value that is the most important to embrace in order to discover what your purpose is and to live in alignment with it?
Mhm. I would say remembering that your life is a sacred gift, and that when you are giving yourself permission to authentically express yourself, meaning share your gifts in a way that's really satisfying to your soul, that give yourself permission to really let that be at the forefront, you know, always being curious about how can I offer this? How can I cultivate this? How can I share this? It's sacred and it's important.
Beautiful. Amanda, I'm so grateful for your sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.